As many people know, the rideATAXIA program for the last 10 years has consisted of live events, cycling events, all throughout the country and a few international locations as well. Of course, this year we are virtual, and we had two really successful events for rideATAXIA NorCal and rideATAXIA Chicago. Well, now we are working on the rideATAXIA Global Challenge, where we're going to engage the entire FA community worldwide. And so we have invited 4 guests. We've invited Meg Malloy, Sean Somerville, Bart Ruppel, and Sherelle Fife to talk about their experience in rideATAXIA and what they have planned for the rideATAXIA Global Challenge. So please enjoy.
Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. For the record, Meg and I have not met ever.
To be fair, Kyle and I have only met a handful of times.
That's cool. But Meg, I have a question for you. I see that you're drinking from a wine glass.
Why you gotta out me, Sean?
There appears to be ice in that glass. So my question is it sangria or do you ice your wine?
No. Okay, you're really calling me out. It's frozen fruit, which is only a step above ice, which is what they do in New Jersey. But like we're pretending it's a little bougie. It's really just, it's like a homemade lazy sangria. That's what we're going for.
I like it.
It's also like
you do
almost 10 o'clock at night. So context is key here, folks.
To be fair, I wanted to know if you're an ice cube in your wine kind of person or what was going on there.
It's a fair question. I understand.
Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Can you introduce yourself?
I am rideATAXIA's event coordinator. So I work with Kyle, obviously, to help organize and make the rideATAXIA rides happen. I like to describe my professional history as comically diverse. I've been an executive assistant for many years, but I spent about 5 years working as a wedding planner, and then I worked as the only woman on the floor of a machine shop in the racing industry for a handful of years. My dad is a very famous racer. He actually just, shout out Bob Lloyd, he just set another world record over this past weekend for the fastest elapsed time. So he did a quarter mile in about 6.09 seconds.
On a motorcycle, right?
On a drag bike, yes, sir.
Nice.
So yeah, I joined FARA actually the first day that the office went remote. So I have kind of been here through the whole quarantine journey, but it's been a wonderful ride.
Tell everyone a little bit about the rideATAXIA Global Challenge.
Absolutely. The Global Challenge is one of the most incredible projects I've ever had the privilege of working on. So excuse me as I like legitimately fangirl for a minute. But it was just really bred out of us pausing and feeling what a unique moment in time this is that we're all experiencing, right? Like everyone in the world is being affected by COVID in some way, shape, or form right now. So it just felt like a very natural and a very meaningful time to bring the global FA community together. So we knew that we wanted this campaign to be very research-centric, and we want it to be like as engaging as it was didactic. But the piece that really like brought it all together was making it feel really personal. So at FAIR, we talk about like how the sun never sets on research because people are working towards a cure all over the world. But that can kind of feel like this big, abstract, distant thing, right? So as we developed the Global Challenge, we knew we wanted to not only emphasize the scope and the breadth of the research, but we also wanted to put faces to the names of the people who were dedicating their lives to the work. So it's just kind of like this big celebration of all the research and advocacy that's happening for the FA and wider Ataxia community all over the world. So So basically, we're going to be leading our participants on this really incredible journey to explore all different locations that are relevant to the FA community, research and CCRN sites, industry and pharma partners, sponsor advocacy organizations, etc. And we've developed like this big project on Google Earth with over 100 locations. So each day we'll be releasing like a handful of spots and highlight either a research site or an advocacy organization. There'll be challenges to keep everyone engaged as they fundraise. And we just have like so much in store that I'm excited about.
How do people interact with it? And like, if they register for the challenge, like what are they expected to do, or what can they expect?
Right. So you register for free, which is great. And we're encouraging everyone to set an activity goal for the month. But really, this can be anything that engages your mind, body, or spirit. So we're encouraging people to set multiple goals if that feels right for them and to get creative. Like, for example, I've decided to hula hoop for the global challenge. So I will be hooping throughout the month. I mean, we'll see. But I've also decided to set a meditation goal and a reading goal. So I'm kind of hitting that mind, body, soul, one of each. And so one of the things that we've found has been really meaningful as we've done previous virtual campaigns is contributing as a community towards a mileage goal. So as people do their activities throughout the month, we're going to be aggregating these miles and then putting them towards one big total. So we are going to be using Strava, which is a free app. So if you're running, walking, or cycling, we've got a club for you. And then if you are doing something like reading or meditating, the conversion is every 10 minutes equals a mile. And then we have an activity log that you can fill out at home and send in to us so that your miles are counted.
So people would register on rideATAXIA.org/global challenge. They would register there. They'd get their fundraising page if they'd like to fundraise. And then they would register on Strava, join the Global Challenge Club, and be able to contribute their miles to the goal there.
Yep, exactly.
If the paper form that you talked about, sending my time in, I assume that's going to be for non-runners, cyclists, and swimmers. So that's going to be my hula hooping log.
Yeah, absolutely. Any activity that's part of that mileage conversion, or if you are not comfortable with Strava, you are opting not to use Strava, you can also just record your activities manually, send them in to us, and we will take care of it.
Okay.
Maybe can you point to a couple of specific things that really resonated with our participants this year and led to a couple of successful events that we've had already?
Absolutely. So we mentioned a couple of times that that contributing miles as a community was really something that resonated with people. So setting a goal, and then what we did was we gave people a weekly visual for the progress of that goal. So for NorCal, our goal was to cross the country from our office in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, to where we normally hold the ride in Winters, California. We expected to be lucky if we crossed the country once. And how many times did we end up crossing, Kyle?
Yeah, like 8.5. Yeah,
it was
ridiculous.
amazing. The community just blew us away. And then for Chicago, we traveled around the Great Lakes. And for both of those campaigns, we aggregated almost enough miles to circumnavigate the globe, which is coincidentally the goal for the global challenge. We also found out that highlighting like really standout endeavors that our participants did amidst the month-long campaigns, like Tony Cerruti did 2 back-to-back centuries for Chicago, and that was this incredible thing. And the community like really grasped on to like, hey, we have a month, let's do something amazing. And then when they saw someone really kind of taking that opportunity by the horns and going for it full force, I think that was something that really got people excited. And then for Chicago, something different that we did was we sent physical materials through the mail. So we were able to give our participants something very tangible. And I think that made them feel really connected, especially like we had like one participant where we addressed it to like their 4th grader. And so like the 4th grader like got the packet in the mail and she was so excited. And that just has been like a really cool thing.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. I want to know, and I want all of our listeners to know from you, what does rideATAXIA mean to you, having seen it so far this year?
This is a job that I fell into at a point where everything in my life felt up in the air. I knew that this was somewhere I was meant to be. The fierceness of the community has just, it knocks me over every day. I'm like legitimately going to cry, but like, I can't even begin to tell you what a privilege it is to work with this community or how much it means to me. This program is just, it is an incredible piece of life that I will cherish as long as I live. Which sounds really dramatic, but like truly, like I see what it means to people, and it is something that resonates even as I have not met anyone from the community in person. I have not been to a ride yet. I've not felt this firsthand. When we had Chicago, I sobbed through the entire event. It was ridiculous. I don't understand, but it's just, you can see how much it means to people. And it makes it the most meaningful work I could ever do.
There's something to be said for work that we do when we know there's a purpose attached to it that means something to us.
Yep, exactly.
Can you guys highlight a couple things that are either unique or cool or somewhat neat about this global challenge?
Yeah, I think what's especially cool about the global challenge is I actually went through on Farah's website and took every single one of the grants that we are currently funded, and we've plotted all of those locations on the Google Earth map. So you can actually take a firsthand look at exactly where that money is going, and some of the projects that Farah is currently using that money for.
Yeah, and the other obvious cool thing about that is that a lot of these are international. I mean, this is the rideATAXIA Global Challenge. A lot of these are international partnerships with different institutions, with other advocacy organizations internationally. And, collaboration is the highest principle that Farah holds. It's kind of our founding principle. And so to showcase that through the Global Challenge, I think it's very meaningful for all of us who try and live the collaboration every day.
All right. I love it. Meg, you're fantastic, but we need to move on. So where do we go? Where do our listeners get involved?
So you definitely want to follow us on social media. So we are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at rideATAXIA. And then you can register on rideataxia.org/global challenge.
Perfect. All right, Meg. Well, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast and for giving us all this awesome info and insight.
Oh, you are welcome.
Well, Sean, thanks for joining us today. For the sake of our listeners, would you be so kind to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me on the podcast. So my FA experience started about 4 or 5 years ago when I started to notice my balance problems. And my passion at the time was aviation. I was taking flight lessons and I absolutely loved it. And so I went off to college at the University of North Dakota to pursue a degree in commercial aviation and one day become a professional pilot. But about a year in, I really noticed that my balance was troubling me to the point that it seemed very unnatural. And I had to basically do a medical exam. And during that exam, I was not able to do the Romberg's test, where you have to stand with your feet together and close your eyes and balance. And I was not able to do that. That's when I really wanted to investigate that issue. And after a year, I finally got diagnosed with FA. It was a whole long and drawn out process that involved me getting medical testing of some kind each time I came home for break. And that diagnosis was, as you guys know, it's pretty brutal at first. You look up symptoms of Friedreich's ataxia, and it doesn't look good on paper. And that was really crushing for me, for my morale. And I lost my dream of becoming a professional pilot, and that was really hard for me. And this virtual challenge and being able to get out on the bike and getting my trike soon, which I'm really excited for, is kind of my way to take the next step in my journey of fighting back against that diagnosis that kind of altered my life and for a short time really ruined it for me. So I'm excited to fight back and excited for my first rideATAXIA.
Nice. So there were a couple things in there I want to unpack a little bit before we move on with the virtual challenge. What did you finish in with school? Like, what's your degree, or what was the career shift at that time?
Yeah, so I ended up changing my major about 6 months ago to aviation studies, since I had done most of the courses for the commercial aviation major. And part of that is you have to get your certified flight instructor instrument certificate. I was able to switch the degree over pretty easily.
What would be one or two of those lessons you think that you learned through your textbooks or through your training that you can apply to life in general?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest lessons you can learn is one of the things that we prepare for all the time in flight training is emergency procedures. Because when something goes wrong in the aircraft, it can be a really startling experience. It's one thing to talk about it on the couch, on the ground, but experiencing that in the air is really startling and it's scary. And you have to be prepared mentally and you have to know what you need to do in those kind of situations. And I think mentally speaking, it's very applicable to that FA diagnosis of, this is a very life-altering diagnosis. And now I have to rely on my backup emergency procedures and kind of get the aircraft or myself fixed and back on the ground and at the destination.
Yeah.
I like that metaphor. That's awesome. So let's move on to, you said your first strike, your first rideATAXIA event. We know this episode is all things virtual challenge. So tell us about your journey so far. We know you don't have a trike yet at the time of this recording, right?
No, I don't have it yet, but I'll be getting it very soon.
Nice. So what's your plan once you have it?
Well, that's going to depend a little bit, as you know, Sean, on the fires that are going on right now on the West Coast.
Good point.
I know the air quality is pretty bad.
Yeah, we have an AQI of dead outside. like don't go outside. Don't breathe.
Hold your breath all the time.
Okay. So yeah, terrible timing to try to do any outdoor exercises.
I recently bought a smart trainer for my bicycle, which I don't really feel that comfortable riding outside anymore, but I've kind of converted that into an indoor trainer, which has been really nice because it still allows me to exercise and to kind of prepare myself a bit for this event. So I imagine that I'll probably have to rely a little bit more on that than the trike for this event, given the air quality, but I'm hoping that it'll kind of clear up in a few weeks here. I haven't been super up to date with it, but I hope that it clears up so that I can ride my cat trike.
Whether you're riding the indoor trainer or you're out on the trails, do you have a goal in mind for distance or the mileage you want to rack up?
I mean, as you guys, I'm sure know, it's been harder to get out and exercise with the pandemic going on. And I've been idle for a few months at this point, not really doing a whole lot of exercise. So I'm really hoping to take this opportunity to kind of create an exercise routine for myself and carry it through the event and beyond.
So when you talked about training and getting out and pushing yourself a little too far too fast, Was that on your trainer or on a that's one thing I'm lost about, because I know you don't have your trike yet, and I assume riding a traditional upright is either challenging or scary or maybe isn't feasible right now. So what were you doing when you hurt yourself?
I was on my bicycle inside, hooked up to the smart trainer. What I had decided to do, and in hindsight, this wasn't a great idea, but in my mind,
Oh, I love these kind of stories.
in my mind, I was like, yeah, I'll go out and I'll ride a short distance. I think I started with 9 miles or so, and then I would take one rest day, and the next day my goal was just to go further than the last day. But that added up really fast. And I think it went like from 9 to 12, and from 12 to 25, and then to 35 and 50 and 55, and then pretty soon I couldn't go any further, hurt myself. So yeah, I'm gonna have to rethink my training routine, because that wasn't a good idea.
Sean, this is your first time getting involved in rideATAXIA. What are you most looking forward to in the global challenge?
It's a good question. It's tough to pinpoint it just on one thing. I'm hoping to fundraise for the FA community, but as well, I'm hoping to kind of motivate myself to go above and beyond and to push those limits that it's so easy to define yourself within as someone who's disabled. I'd say it's those two, and to also have another opportunity to engage with the FA community, since I've really only been part of FARA for about 6 months at this point.
What does rideATAXIA mean to you?
To me, rideATAXIA is all about the FA community coming together and all of us pushing our limits physically to raise money for FA research.
Yeah, I think, one of the things you said was pushing our limits physically. Like, this is a disease that affects our physical abilities. And I think that for me, that's one of the powerful things about this is that we're going, no, you know what? We're going to use what we've got, our physical abilities, and fight back against what's happening to us.
Absolutely. I think that's really important, especially for all of us, in maintaining the physical condition that we're in now and slowing the progression of this disease.
You just talked about, rideATAXIA means to you the whole group coming together, the whole community coming together and getting stuff done. Why do you think it's important that it's more than just you and your family? Like, what's the power in community, in your opinion?
That's a great question. In my opinion, when the FA community comes together, we create a stronger message when all of us push our physical and mental limits to achieve the best and that we can achieve for this event. I think it sends a really strong message and it helps us to fundraise even more, and most importantly, increase awareness for those people out there with rare diseases.
Oh, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
How are you getting your trike this year? Like, what's allowing you to be able to get a trike?
I'm not really sure what you mean by that question.
Talking a little bit about AAI, right? Because at first I'm like, well, he's got a truck. He's going to drive over and throw it in the back.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, well,
I bought gas from my car. I'm going to drive.
It's funny you say that, Sean, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to drive over there and then we're going to put it in the back of the car.
Sean, once you've got your car figured out and you've got room to throw it in your car, I think really what Kyle's curious about is talking about the Ataxian Athlete Initiative.
Yeah. So, yeah, the Ataxian Athlete Initiative is what has allowed me to get this trike, because I did not realize how expensive those things are until I looked at the webpage. I was like, wow. It's a lot of money. But I was really motivated to get back out and ride. I used to ride a decent amount on my bicycle, and I did some rides. I never quite got to the Century, but I was close. I did 72 miles.
Wow.
And I was looking forward to that, but I never got to do it. And I kind of wanted to get back into it. And this seemed like the perfect opportunity. And as you guys have talked about a lot in your stories, when you get that diagnosis, you start to realize that you won't be able to do things like riding your bike and running, and the list goes on. And it's been kind of hard to lose those things. And I've noticed last time I rode my bike, which I think was around a year ago, I noticed that it was more challenging, and I didn't feel safe at times, especially when I had to ride on the road, stopping at the stoplights and getting started. My balance wasn't so great, and it didn't feel very safe. And I really wanted the opportunity, or the ability, I should say, to ride again. And I'm super grateful, and I'm super excited to be able to get back on the bike, push those limits, and participate in important events for the FA community like rideATAXIA.
Well, Sean, I'm glad you're pushing those limits, and I'm really glad that you joined us today. So thank you for sharing a bit of your perspective and your outlook on life.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys. It was great talking with you.
Bart Rupel, welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
Hey, Kyle and Sean. Thanks for inviting me.
First of all, for people who don't know you, maybe if we could take a minute and just introduce yourself and maybe talk about how we all got connected.
So when I first met you, Kyle,
Here we
go. My son had recently been diagnosed with Friedreich's Ataxia, and we were putting on a fundraiser, and we were looking for a keynote speaker. I'd heard about you, through FAPG, which is the Friedreich's Ataxia Parents Group. So that's an email support group of parents of Friedreich's Ataxians. Somehow maybe we exchanged numbers or something. Anyhow,
Right.
and you told me about the ride to Vegas.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, that's the only way I get numbers, Kidding. Yeah. So then, talk about the ride to Vegas a little bit. Let's get that going, because that was the first time all three of us rode together.
Yeah, that's where I met Sean for the first time. And so I believe the total ride was about 2 weeks, and you guys were starting in Sacramento.
Right.
And I didn't have enough vacation time to do the whole ride. So I met you guys in Bakersfield. We drove, my friend Tim Towers helped with SAG, drove our trailer down with us, and we showed up in Bakersfield. And I remember being really happy because the the day before, you guys had actually ridden past Bakersfield. So we drive out past Bakersfield to start a little bit, and we were going to Tehachapi. And I'd been riding and training. I thought I was not ready for 50 miles and 5,000 feet.
Yeah.
For our listeners, this was a ride from rideATAXIA 2 from Sacramento to Las Vegas, Nevada. So the first day of your riding, was that up Tehachapi Pass?
Yes. Yeah. It was 50 miles with 5,000 feet of climbing. And then I remember at the rest stop, we were given a choice. There were two different routes to go up, and Sean and I picked the wrong one.
Yeah.
We were the only ones to have picked that route, which I think ended up going higher before it went down.
Yeah, because the other route was on the highway.
That was it. Yeah.
And that's always a little bit, smoother and not as, up and down. So, yeah.
But also scary because it's an open road. And, at
Right.
least for me, I was still riding the upright and it was a little wobbly in my
Yes.
in my
You
riding.
weren't exactly going in a straight line.
I may have even just gone like, you know what, I'm going to go with Sean so I can keep an eye on Sean, because
Yes.
the writing scared me a little bit. And the other thing I remember about that day was it was so windy. And Sean and I got to the top of Tehachapi Pass. And I think we had like 8 miles to go, Sean. So we're at the top of this steep hill and we have to go downhill into Tehachapi.
And
the wind.
We're thinking it's gonna be beautiful. A nice, beautiful sail down the hill.
God, so we had to pedal to get down the hill.
It was,
and I was so tired, and I'm literally crying as I'm pedaling.
It was so depressing and incredibly anticlimactic to do all this work all day. It was a warm, very hot day. It was, Tehachapi Mountains, they're dry. It's not like we're covered in beautiful trees. This ain't Colorado,
Right.
And Sean and I were the last ones into the hotel. It was dark by the time we pulled in. I remember.
We're sitting there with our feet up. We're drinking beer, and
having a cigar.
What are you guys doing? Why are you so slow?
And Bart and I have been friends ever since.
We have.
Special bond.
To the ride the next year where we went Portland to Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the next one. That's where I got more involved, because that one, the Portland to Seattle ride, was the last really big ride, and I helped with the route planning for that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I did. Yep. No, I spent hours on Google Earth zooming in to see, does the road really go through there?
Well, and we had printed maps because there was no like GPS or like there was no good mapping software on your phone yet.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, we didn't have our Garmin's with turn left, turn right.
Right. Yeah,
no,
that's right. That would have been early 2009.
Yep.
No, we had pages for every day to hand out to the people who were riding, and that Vegas was my favorite rideATAXIA by far. Portland, Seattle is a close second. Rain every day, wind, hail that hurts so much. And, you just laughed until you cried because, like, what else are you gonna do? That was, and Matt and his friends came on that ride. So we haven't said that Matt is my son.
Let's talk about Matt for a second.
Yeah.
All right, give me a minute to compose myself.
Sure. I'll help a little bit. Matt is Bart's boy. And obviously the reason why Bart got connected to the community, and part of the reason why we're all connected today. And I hope that Bart, you feel that talking about Matt even briefly is a way to honor his memory and honor the way he lived his life.
Yeah. Yes. We're not too far from the anniversary of Matt's passing. So, which was in August of 2017, so 3 years ago. And his birthday's coming up, and he would have been turning 30 next month. So it's just a tough few months for the Ruppel family. Yeah, right now. So, but I was honored to have Matt in my life. So we're going to keep fighting till we find a cure.
So a few memories that I have of Matt. Obviously, Portland to Seattle, he rode like crazy with, with your assistance on that ride. Like you said, it was raining every day, but Matt, Matt muscled through every single day, and we were all freezing, and his knees were knocking, and he was just pedaling like crazy. So that was cool. And then,
We got a great picture of him with it. We had ski goggles on him because he's on the recumbent trike like you are. But for some of the ride, not all of it, for some of the ride, I helped tow him.
Mhm.
So he was getting spray from my tire.
Oh,
So he'd take off his ski goggles and he'd look like a raccoon because his face would just be mud.
yeah, yeah.
Two of his really good friends from elementary school and middle school had joined us on that ride.
Yeah, was that sort of the first manifestation of the Rupellathon?
Yes, it would have been. It would have been. Yes. So for people who aren't cyclists, a peloton is a group of bike riders. So usually in a race, like in the Tour de France, they talk about the peloton. And that's the big body of riders that is riding along. My last name is Rupel, and so our fundraising teams have been known as the Rupellathon.
Clever. I like
Yep.
it.
And
we
you guys,
do the rideATAXIA.
you guys
Yeah.
crush it at rideATAXIA in NorCal and all the stuff that you do. Always, in memory of Matt. One other memory of Matt that I wanted to mention was we rode to from Folsom to Grass Valley and back, and I remember him. I just think he had pom poms, and he was cheering everybody on.
What I think about when I think of you guys crushing it, you're a different Bart on the bike today than you were in 2008. And I think part of that is maybe you're being nice to me and staying with me on those Tehachapi Mountains, because I kid you not, you guys, you and your crew, your average speed, I don't know, it's got to be like 23, 24 miles per hour. And meanwhile, I'm trucking along in some country road in Winters, California at an average of maybe 15 if I'm lucky.
Well, I've been the rides have got me riding a lot. I wasn't really a cyclist, and now I have two groups that I ride with regularly. I've got a Tuesday night group, and Saturday mornings I have another group that I ride with.
What do you think of the virtual challenge? How is this? Has it changed anything in your training or mentality for this year?
When it was obvious that we weren't going to be able to do this in person, my first thought was, wow, there goes the fundraising. And not necessarily because we weren't going to be able to do it in person, but because it seemed like the economy was just going to shut down so much. And I was like, who's going to be able to donate? And I think we adjusted our goal down to $50,000.
Yeah, it's usually 100.
And then we crushed it.
Yeah,
I was just stunned. We were over 80,000, I think, right?
We finished out like 95.
95. Okay.
Yeah.
I was super proud that we were able to raise the kind of money that we typically raise for NorCal.
Yeah.
So that was a pleasant surprise. I'm glad that we've been able to figure out a way to keep people involved.
So, what do you attribute the great fundraising and just the big push that everybody made this year? What do you think that was? Like, I was thinking the same thing you were. Like, are we even going to be able to do this at all? Right?
It's the community, Kyle. It's your family, it's my family, it's our friends. These people who show up every year, and contribute big time, whether they're running a rest stop or helping lay out the course, and all those people who they have family or friends with Friedreich Ataxia, and they show up every year, and they weren't going to let it stop them. It's like this pandemic's going to end. We keep pushing through. We keep turning the crank.
I think everyone was like, all right, it's go time. Let's do this. And we looked at each other in the eye and said, all right, it's for you. It's for you.
Yeah.
And everyone's doing it for each other. And I just think it's really incredible how it turned out this year.
Yeah. There's an incredible amount of resolve in this community.
Yeah.
Incredible amount of support.
I think the way you put it there a minute ago, it's just you figure it out, right? It's one crank at a time.
Yeah.
And I think that's indicative of how we live life, right? You, your wife, both your children, our families, our friends. We have work to do, and we're not going to stop until it's done.
I know that you're going to be riding like crazy to contribute to the goal, which is to ride around the world. So, Bart, what is your goal for miles between September 25th and October 24th? I think I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but I want to see where we land.
Let's say 500 miles.
Boom, there it is. If you could boil it down to one statement, what does rideATAXIA mean to you?
Hope. Hope invokes, optimism. I'm generally an optimistic person. It gives me hope. It's more than hope. It's not the best word. I'm not a religious person. We named our fundraisers Faith, and it stood for Friedreich's ataxia in the heart, because it affects the heart. Or one of the things it affects is the heart. rideATAXIA gives me faith that, we humans can do great things together. We can cure diseases. We've done it with other diseases. We'll do it with this one.
Amazing. Love you, Bart.
I love you too, Sean. Love you, Kyle.
Bart, thanks so much for joining us tonight. It was great to catch up, and we really appreciate you being on the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
Well, I'm happy to have Sherelle joining us on the phone all the way from across the pond, I think is the common phrase. So Sherelle is a dear friend of ours from Australia. Sherelle, thanks for joining us on the phone today.
Thank you so much for having me, Carl and Sean. I'm honoured to be here.
I believe across the pond is the Atlantic Ocean, and then Sherelle is down under, I believe, right? So
I am down under, yes.
Yes, we couldn't tell. That wasn't a German hello. That wasn't a European hi.
That was a g'day, really.
There it is.
Nice.
Well, Sherelle, thank you again for joining us. Can you tell us who you are? What do you do? What's your role?
Sure. I am the CEO of FARA in Australia, the Friedreich Ataxia Research Association. So I am helping fundraise down here in Australia. That's our main mission, to raise money to fund research for, finding a cure for FA, which, is our number one goal.
So
yeah.
The CEO of FARA Australia, one of the things that I didn't realize when I went over there was Australia is so huge, and it has a population of like 25 or 30 million or something. And
yeah.
So talk about the FA community in Australia.
Yeah, so we are a national organisation. So we're based in Melbourne, but of course work with FA patients in the community all across the country. And it is quite a big country. I think there's a lot of European countries that can fit within our one. So we're quite spread out, and a lot of people in rural and remote areas, which can make it difficult to bring people together. But I think one thing that has been great, I think a great thing to come out of our current situation that we're finding around the world is we're finding much better ways to connect everyone, you know, through Zoom calls, through social media. And I think that's really helped us pick up and reach out to more people and probably connect with more people within our community. So we do have people in most of our states, FAs and their families that we connect with in most states around Australia. But obviously a lot more in Sydney and Melbourne, where our biggest populations are. But we try and get around to some of the major capital cities when we can to have patient forums and things. And that's a great way to connect. I love being able to get the community to come together when we can.
Do you have an example of the power of international collaboration, and how does it affect the operations at Fair Australia?
So we're quite a very small organisation at the moment. There is just myself and our wonderful board. So I'm kind of doing a bit of everything at the moment, and having the relationship with FAR in the US has just been fantastic. I think we're all on the same team and we're all fighting the same fight, and to be able to come together and share resources and share ideas, it really, I think it means that we are using our limited resources more effectively, I think, and having access to campaigns that we can work on together, like rideATAXIA and Lend Us a Muscle that we did earlier in the year with you guys, having access to the breadth of knowledge that FAR in the US have. So the FAR Scientific Advisory Board, for example, you've got such a breadth of knowledge there in all the people that are on your board. It's great to know that when we're funding research, a lot of the research advice comes from FAR in the US, and we can feel confident that we're investing in the best research that's happening globally at the moment. So to share that knowledge and that information, I think, is priceless, really. It just makes sense, and it really does help our job here in Australia.
You guys have a pretty exciting team of doctors and scientists as well there in Melbourne. Can you talk for a minute about the research activity going on in your on your side of the world?
We can. Yes, so we're lucky here to have a wealth of amazing FA researchers. So we've just recently announced in the last couple of months $175,000 we're investing. So we've got some research happening at St Vincent's Medical Research Institute here in Melbourne, and that's a new grant that's just been offered for some research into cardiomyopathy. We also have some research happening as part of the AIM Awards, the award for the innovative mindset that FAR US launched during the COVID crisis. So that was some out-of-the-box thinking that I think you received 17 applications for that, and they've awarded 4 grants, and 2 of those grants are here in Melbourne again, one at the University of Melbourne and one at the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute. And we've also got Monash University doing a lot of biomarker work with MRIs, and there's some exciting stem cell research happening up in Wollongong in New South Wales. So there's a vast amount of research happening for a small country, which is exciting. And we've got the consortium, the Stem Cell and Gene Therapy Consortium at the Murdoch Children's Research Institute. So they work very closely with Farah in the US as well. So it's great to know that there's lots happening here.
So, Sherelle, a couple of years ago, you guys launched your own version of rideATAXIA, or rideATAXIA Australian chapter, if you will. Can you talk to us about the impact that particular event or fundraising effort has had on your efforts there?
Sure. I was so excited to be part of the first rideATAXIA Australia.
So were we.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such an inspiring event. Started from humble beginnings. Once we watched the Ataxian documentary, gosh, we were just blown away. And I think then being able to do that here in Australia was just fantastic. It was such, I felt like it was such a beautiful event to bring the community together, but very special that we had you and Sean over there, as well as the wonderful Ron Bartek, the president of Farah US, and Jen Farmer, the CEO. So it was so good to have you guys there to make it that extra special, because I know you're all rock stars in the FA world, and I know our community was super excited to get together to meet you. And I just think it was a wonderful day to bring the community together, and it just felt like a real celebration, and people got out there on their bikes or wheelchairs and walked or rode, and yeah, it was a beautiful day, and I'm so glad we got to do it, and I'm so glad we're still part of rideATAXIA, and really looking forward to the global challenge this year.
So speaking of the global challenge, obviously, like you said, it's always special and a lot of fun to get the community together and ride and eat and take pictures and just have a good time together. Obviously, with the global challenge or the virtual effort, it's slightly different this year due to COVID. Do you expect the same level of enthusiasm and excitement around the virtual option from your community?
I think so, Sean. I know, obviously very different to having everyone come together on a particular day, but I think opening it up like this also makes it easier for a lot of people to participate. So especially because, as you mentioned before, Australia is so vast, a lot of people cannot come to where we might be holding an event. So it is a really good way to have the whole community get involved if they'd like to, and setting yourself challenges and keeping yourself active any way you can is really important. And I think the community will get behind it. We've already had quite a few registrations in the lead up to the launch, so yeah, we're excited.
If you had to guess or quantify your miles, how many miles do you think Farah Australia collectively is going to be able to accomplish?
We're going to take this as a commitment.
As a commitment, holy dooly.
Well, but we all know it, it can be riding, it can be walking, it can be, journaling, whatever the effort may be, yoga.
Well, I personally am hoping to clock up at least 200 kilometres, or it's a bit less than miles, but that's my personal goal for the challenge. So walking, running, maybe a bit of cycling, but Farah Australia across the board, I'd like to think we could do 20,000 kilometres.
All right.
20,000 miles.
Nice.
Maybe I'll bump it up to miles, so that's even more.
That's huge. What I really want you to do is make sure that Dr. Martin Delachecky hears about this commitment, and you rope him in on your behalf.
He might have to do at least 10,000, maybe.
Yeah, at least, he should probably handle at least 50%.
I may have overestimated our abilities there, so maybe I might bring it back down.
No way. No, I think, Martin and his sons and friends and family and you and your kids,
Yeah.
they all count. So
we all count.
We
yeah.
can do
So
it.
look, we'll be busy for the
Yeah,
month.
exactly.
Very busy.
It's not about one person doing, 800 miles. It's about all of us together, and every single mile counts from every single person, right? And
Absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of the principle of the global challenge. We really wanted to, get everyone who wants to get involved all around the world to get into this, so we can travel even further if we all work together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's awesome bringing, it does make the world feel a lot smaller when you can bring everyone together for one campaign. And I love seeing, what everyone's doing across the globe and with people posting on social media. I think it's great bringing everyone together with a campaign like this. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
What does rideATAXIA mean to you?
Well, I think I mentioned before about being a part of the first rideATAXIA in Australia. So it's very special to me from being sort of part of that on the onset here in Australia. But I think rideATAXIA to me, it is about setting a challenge for yourself and achieving that, whatever that challenge might be. And I think that gives people purpose and empowers people, no matter what they're facing in their lives at the time, to have challenges to keep aspiring to. Really, just I think it's so important, and it just gives people that extra boost especially when you achieve those goals and you set yourself goals and you complete them. I think not only are we raising important funds, which of course is a very important part of rideATAXIA, but I think personally for people it is important as well. The two sides of it that are special to me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's great. Thank you. Sherelle, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. And thank you for the role you play in the international FA community and just bringing everyone together and, working with everyone like we all do. It's all about collaboration, right? And so I really appreciate you and being on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honour, and I love working with our friends overseas, so thank you.
We hope that you enjoyed this special episode featuring dear friends of ours, and we hope you get involved in the rideATAXIA Global Challenge. For more information or to get involved, be sure to visit rideataxia.org/global challenge. We look forward to talking to you next week. Until then, keep living with urgency.
Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast.
Find us online at twodisableddudes.com and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Special thanks to our friend and audio producer, Jake Tompkins.